Hey everybody, my name is Trevor.
I'm Vincent.
And we are the Anthony and Todd Show. And today we're going to be checking out the latest Rustin Man record, Drift Code. Paul Douglas Webb, aka Rustin Man, with two N's as you wrote it, is an English musician. He was the bassist for the English band Talk Talk. And this is really his second solo project under the name Rustin Man.
And
Rusting Man.
his music is a weird, almost folk inspired version of psychedelic rock meets jazz meets normal rock, kind of like Queens of the Stone Age plus I guess jazz plus what is it, of the Grateful Dead.
Yeah,
I think that's kind of what best way to explain it is just this weird genre blend of all these different styles in this one unique way. His voice is very kind of torn down, kind of raw, and he comes through with this Bowie performances. But when I mean Bowie performances, I mean that nonchalant kind of talky way
it's
Bowie used.
Black Star Bowie versus
yeah, later, way later Bowie.
Yeah, this is definitely later Bowie versus like a Modern Love, singing, really enthusiastic kind of Bowie.
Yeah, more but also frontman of Queens of the Stone Age. I forget his name. I want to say Pete Dunne, but I know that's not it. I know his name's not Pete Dunne.
It's not. Yeah, in the vein of Bowie though, I also see a lot of hints of, I mentioned Lou Reed, Leonard Cohen, Iggy Pop before post-pop depression,
during the adventures of Peter
during
P.
his depression.
Damn it.
Just this sort of genre of I guess not older male singer-songwriters, because they got that way because they all aged at the same time. So now they're older and or dead, but they weren't back when they were making music. So I don't really know how to describe it. It's the Lou Reed type, almost the second generation of Bob Dylan.
Yeah.
That's the best way I can describe it. The second generation of artists like Bob Dylan that kind of this sing speech, very storytelling oriented. Except for in Rustin Man, I think Webb sounds he sounds like Bowie if he was singing over a jazz instrumental.
Yeah.
Or a Grateful Dead instrumental or a Cream instrumental or something.
Over the course of this entire thing, we get these blends of genres, and they actually pan out really well, and you get through these multiple waves of all this thing. This thing feels like a really flowing production experience.
Yeah.
I really love performances and the production throughout. I love the horns. I love the hi-hat percussion that we're getting, that very jazz percussion style performances we're seeing throughout. I love Rustin Man's voice. I think it actually fits the theme over this course of the thing. While it is very one note, I don't think it matters that much because it fits that environment. This dark, almost woods campfire environment where what is that show, Over the Garden Wall environment, where you're being chased by this monster in the woods, and it's very folky, but at the same time very urban legendy or fairy tale in a sense, Brothers Grimm too. It just has that that woodsy, that nature inspired quality, that old timey dirt being rushed off the scenes of a tree or something like that.
Okay.
I know that's just a lot of descriptions that meant the same thing, but I think
that's what I did. I do that on every review.
But I think over the course of this entire thing, we're getting a lot of good production, we're getting a lot of good performances, and we're getting a lot of good shakeups in the style of the performances. It's not just let's play this one riff throughout the course of the entire thing. We're getting these huge shakeups, later on, Emporium Dream and The World's in This Town. I was kind of on them first, but then they shake up into these larger tracks that I find to be really incredible. I think the biggest thing I can dip this album on is I feel lyrically and almost narratively I'm missing something.
Yeah.
It just doesn't... I feel this thing just doesn't have a lot to offer me in that feel, and I feel that's one of the themes, at least in a setting or an audio setting like this, having that only intensifies the narrative, and on this I really don't get a sense of Rustin Man and what the lyrical presence of that is.
No, I also agree.
Or what his character is.
It's that's like hard to. I think it's hard to make this type of music without telling a story, and I don't feel like Rustin Man tells a story at all. If you're gonna take from some of the greatest, I think like singer songwriter like storytellers of the past 50 years, then you need to do everything. You need to take inspiration from everything that they're doing. You can't just take David Bowie's voice and say like this is a good voice and like take it, but like not take the storytelling aspect as well. I think we can all agree that there are definitely better voices than Bob Dylan out there. And I think really anybody that listed earlier, I think that there's definitely better voices than any of them, even Bowie. But their storytelling and their songwriting abilities is what sets them above. That's why Bob Dylan has lived on, is because his songwriting was great and it was very story-centric. And his voice sucked, but like his songwriting was good. And he just performed it that way. If you're going to take the voices, you're taking the lesser of the talents. You're taking like not the worst part, because that implies that it was bad, but you're taking the worst part of these artists.
The lesser of the two sides.
Yeah, you're taking the lesser of the two sides. You're taking the performance practice and the voice of somebody that is a great storyteller. You should have taken the storytelling ability, and that's where I feel like this project seriously lacks. Like if you're gonna take inspiration from them, do it right.
Yeah, and I think that's literally all we gotta say. I love the performances throughout this entire thing. It's a nice, easy listen at only 38 minutes.
Yeah.
It comes through with this like whamming production that takes you down this like psych route, and then you go into a bit of jazz before you get down this like huge psychedelic pit, and then you get to these like catchy, very like old, frail vocals that I think are cool.
Yeah.
And it's productionally fantastic, but it's missing any depth past that. I had fun listening to this regardless of that. And yeah, I think we're just going to leave it off there. Until next time, guys, I've been Vincent.
I'm Trevor.
And see you, boys.
Bye, everybody.